بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in our lessons in the commentary of Aqidah Sanusiyah, written by Sheikh Sa'id Fuda Hafidhahullah. And in our last lesson, we have come into the part where we are speaking about the possibilities, meaning we speak about the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we say that the action of Allah is from the jais. So before that, we spoke about the rational proofs for the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last part, we spoke about al-kalam, sama' wal-basar. Al-kalam is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we have as-sama', the hearing, and also the sight. And the rational and the evidence is that, we say that if we do not ascribe in these attributes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it will mean that He is the opposite. He is the opposite of kalam, and He is unable to have speech, is dumb, and the opposite of sight is blindness, and the opposite of hearing is dumb or deaf often. So these are impossibilities into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the author mentioned that the evidences based on the textual text, that is in the Quran and the Sunnah, in establishing the attributes of kalam, sama' and basar, is stronger than the rational proof. Meaning when we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we believe in the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that He is mutakallim, that is sami', that is basir. This is stronger than the rational proofs. This is what at the end he mentioned. So maybe we can go back into our book for us because last week we do not have any class. So if you look here, he said you should know that the textual proof for hearing, sight, and speech is stronger than the rational proof. Basically textual proof, and it's basically the Quran and the Sunnah. Allah mentioned in the Quran that He is mutakallim, He is sami', He is basir, and that is stronger. Now, when it comes into the rational proof, as what we mentioned, that if Allah were not described with those attributes, then the opposite will happen. And if someone asked me in the last few lessons, when we spoke about this, someone asked me, what about the sense of touching, the sense of a smell? So the answer to this, that it is all from the linkages of the hearing and sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to sense of touch, when it comes to smell, sense of smell, all this is from the linkage of knowledge, the linkage of hearing, and also the linkage of sight. So that is the answer. And then we spoke about the rational proofs for the impossibilities. So all this we have covered already. We have covered. So the author mentioned the rational proofs for that which is necessary for Allah, and the rational proofs for that which is impossible as well. So when you understand what is necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then at the same time you will understand what are the impossibilities. So for example, we understand that Allah possesses knowledge, that Allah has the attribute of knowledge. So it is impossible for Him to be ignorant. Correct or not? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He possess any power, so it is impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have any disabilities. It is impossible, and it is impossible two things to be gathered, and to say that Allah possess knowledge, at the same time He does not have knowledge. Now these are the gathering of two contradictories, and this is impossible. Likewise, when you say Allah is all powerful but He is not powerful, this is a contradiction. So when we say that Allah is all powerful, automatically we understand the opposite. That is, He is not. That He does not possess any disabilities. So this is what we meant. And when you understand the necessary attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, automatically and you will understand the impossibilities to him, because otherwise there will be a contradiction. This is what basically the author is saying. If that were possible, it will entail the gathering of two contradictories. And if a person say Allah is all-knowing and not all-knowing, this is the example he gave. If Allah is both all-knowing and not all-knowing, so it will entail the gathering of two contradictories. And entail of two contradictories, and it is false. It is impossible. That being said, he is either all-knowing or he is ignorant. So he cannot be both. So when we say that it is necessary for God to be all-knowing, and we have spoken about the rational proofs behind this, then we say it is impossible that he is ignorant. And there is no third alternative. We cannot be saying he is knowledgeable and ignorant at the same time. Since we have affirmed that he is all-knowing, he cannot be ignorant. The same can be said for the remaining attributes as well. Likewise, when we say Allah is in existence, we cannot be saying Allah is in existence, but he is not in existence as well. This is again the gathering of two contradictories. Likewise, when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no beginning, but he has a beginning. Now this cannot happen. Or a person he says that Allah has an ending, but he has no ending. This also cannot happen. And then we have come into this part. This is the last lesson. I forget some of this, if not all. The author is saying the rational proof that Allah can effect the possible or leave it. So here we are speaking about the possibilities. We are speaking about the mumkinat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he can bring something into existence or not bring something into existence. Nobody can force Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what we meant. The actions of Allah are jaiz. The actions of Allah are not wajib. The actions are jaiz. Jaiz meaning it is possible, and it is linked to the possibilities. It is linked to the possibilities. So now when we are going to speak about the rational proof, why that this action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is giving any effect or living something, why is it from the jaiz, not from the wajib or from the mustahil? So this is basically the rational proof that he's going to put forth. So he said, if it were rationally necessary or impossible for Allah to effect something that is contingently possible. So for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he created us, human beings. We are from the mumkin. Our nature, our existence is from the mumkinat. So when we say that a mumkin, it means that a mumkin is something that can accept two things. And number one, it can accept existence, and number two, it can accept non-existence. And we mentioned many a times of this example, and we gave an example of ourselves, that we are a mumkin. Last time we are not in existence, now we are in existence. So we accept non-existence, and now we accept existence. It is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that determine whether something exists or does not exist. It cannot exist together. It cannot exist and not exist together. This is a meeting of two contradictories. You cannot be saying something is in existence and not existence at the same time. But it doesn't mean that they cannot exist and not exist at the same time. They do not accept both non-existence and existence. They accept both existence and non-existence, but they do not accept any existence and non-existence at the same time. So an example is ourselves, and now we are accepting any existence. 100 years after, we are in non-existence, and likewise 100 years before, we are non-existence. And it is the meaning of a mumkin that accept an existence and non-existent. So when we speak about something that is contingent, the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that gives any effect to the creation of this mumkin, it is also from the jaiz. Because now when we say these creations are from the mumkinat, the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be wajib. Because if the actions are wajib, there is a contradiction. Because wajib is something that cannot accept non-existence. But mumkin, it accepts any non-existence. So the linkage towards what is mumkin is also any jaiz. So it is impossible that the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are wajib or mustahil. This is what he is saying. If it were rational, necessary or impossible for Allah to effect something that is contingently possible, so now this effect the effect and is contingent. So the linkage and it must also any be from the jaiz, and it cannot any be wajib. This is what he is saying. It cannot be from wajib and cannot be from mustahil, because mustahil and it cannot be in existence. So he said the contingently possible, the existence or non-existence of which the mind judges as equally plausible. What is the meaning of equally plausible, ya jama'ah? This is the thing, and then you have to understand it by now. For those who are following this class and from the beginning, this is the thing, and that is very, very important for you to take note. So for those who have the kitab, please underline this. The existence or non-existence of which the mind judges as equally plausible. What is the meaning? When we speak about mumkin, as what I mentioned earlier, mumkin accept existence and non-existence. So it is equal. What is the thing that specifies the existence and your non-existence? The will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah wills and is a mumkin and is in existence, it will come into existence. But before everything they are equal in a sense. Because why? Because they can accept both. Because they are possibility. There is a possibility that it can exist. There is a possibility that it cannot exist. The thing then determine the existence and non-existence is the irada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the meaning of a mumkin, that it accepts existence and non-existence. And it is equal. In terms of its acceptance, would be necessary, and the mind could not conceptualize its non-existence. And if the author is saying, if it were rationally necessary or impossible for Allah to give effect, to effect something that is contingently possible, the contingent possible would be necessary. What is the meaning? Now, if we say that the action of Allah is wajib, the effect must be wajib. If the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is necessary, the effect must be necessary. But if you say that the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the thing that gives effect, the action of Allah is necessary, but yet the effect is contingent, now there is a contradiction. There is a contradiction. Why is there a contradiction? Because how can something that only accepts existence, which is necessary, can give effect can be linked to something that is any contingent? Is it possible or not possible? It is impossible. So that is why our ulama mentioned, for example, that if the action of Allah are necessary, the mumkinat will also be necessary, and this is impossible, because mumkin is not wajib. Mumkin is mumkin. So if the action is wajib, the effect must also be wajib. And this is mustahil, because the effect is not wajib in reality. The effect is jaiz. The effect is jaizul wujud. The creations are jaizul wujud. Why jaizul wujud? Because it accepts existence and non-existence. So it cannot be necessary, then the action cannot be wajib to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is jaiz. So that is why we say that Allah can give effect to something and not give effect to something. Nothing enforces upon Allah. Nothing enforces upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if the action of Allah, for the sake of argument, is necessary, and at the same time you are saying the effect is contingent, now there is a contradiction, because the effect is always in existence. It is necessary. It's always in existence, whereas upon the action is always in existence, whereas the effect of the action is contingent. So there is a contradiction. So this is what he said. If it were rationally necessary or impossible for Allah to effect something that is contingently possible, remember this, that is contingently possible, then it would be necessary. The contingently possible would be necessary, and this is mustahil. And the mind could not conceptualize its non-existence, because necessary is something that does not accept non-existence. Correct, Anam? What is the difference between necessary and contingent? Contingent is something that accepts existence and non-existence, whereas necessary can only accept existence. Then what about the impossibilities and the mustahil? The mustahil cannot accept existence, and it is all constantly in non-existence. It cannot be in existence. So if you were to say that the action of Allah is necessary, then the effect must also be necessary, but that is not the case, and the effects are contingent, then what you call it, the action and it cannot be necessary. Now, so it is any from the possibilities, not any from the necessary. If it were rationally necessary for him to effect some contingently possible things, it would necessitate that all possible things are transformed into necessities. This is another thing, and I hope any you will underline. Inshallah, and when we meet up any in our classes, inshallah, after any of these viruses any go off, inshallah, yani we can sit down and speak any about this. Now, but I hope any it is clear, inshallah. A few times we mentioned about this already. For those who are following the class, I hope, inshallah, any there is no issue. I repeated this 3 times already. I hope any is clear, inshallah. Now, the author mentioned it would necessitate, if it were rationally necessary for him to effect it, if it were rationally necessary and for him to effect some contingently any possible things, it will necessitate that all possible things are transformed into necessities. If you say, for example, there are certain things that are certain things that is necessary any for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give effect on some any contingent any beings, then it will mean that all any contingent beings and it will follow any the same ruling, because any they are of the same nature. They are of the same nature. So it will necessitate that all possible beings are transformed into necessities. So if any of the actions any of Allah is necessary, then the possibilities any will become necessary, despite any if a person he says no, what I meant and is only part any of the contingent any beings. So when you say part, it covers any all of the contingent beings, and because any they carry the same ruling. If it is applied any to some, it is applied to all. If you say that some things, some contingent things are actually necessary, then it will entail that what you meant any is all any contingencies and it will be necessary, because any the ruling any is the same, and because the nature any of these contingencies any they are the same. So by you any saying any part of it any is necessary, then what is meant any is the whole any contingencies and will be any necessary. Taib. Now he speaks any about the impossibility. I really hope any we can have any our classes any again, because I think some of these things any there we are in need and need to have some Q&A. But what I do, if you notice any I tend any to repeat. So I think having any class any online it might be longer any than having class any physically. Wallahu alam. Then he mentioned if some were rationally impossible, it would necessitate that all possible things are transformed into impossibilities. Now, yani if yani we say that yani this effect yani is impossible on some what you call it, even yani what you call it on the possible things, then we say that it is impossible any for the possibilities any to come into existence any, because in the first place it is impossible. It is impossible any to bring it any into existence. So if you say that the action of Allah is impossible, then the effect any is also impossible. Correct or not? Easy. This is false and inconceivable, because such a proposition would entail the gathering of two contradictories. What is the meaning any? What is the author is speaking about? So now let me summarize any this thing. Now we say what you call it contingent contingent things they can accept existence and non-existence. By you any saying any, for example, a contingent any being yani to give any effect becomes any necessary, and you are saying that this contingent being is necessary at the same time and it is contingent. And you say it is contingent, but the effect of bringing it into existence and is necessary. Now this is a gathering of two contradictories, because contingent beings accept existence and non-existence, whereas the effect of bringing it into existence can only accept any existence. Now this is a contradiction. This is a contradiction. How can you say that the effect of bringing it into existence and is necessary, whereas the action of bringing it into existence and is necessary, and the effect and is contingent? Is it possible or not possible? It is impossible. Why is it impossible? Because the nature of contingent beings is that it accepts existence and non-existence, whereas the actions as what mentioned, is necessary, and necessary can only accept existence. So how can any something, as though we are saying, how can any something that can accept existence and non-existence, but at the same time it can only accept existence? Now this is any the contradiction. So he said, looking at such things as possibilities, they accept both existence and non-existence. This is the nature of possibilities, the contingent beings. Looking at them as necessary, they can be existent only. They cannot any be both. Looking at them as impossible, they can only be non-existence, and they cannot be in existence, only one. So for something to accept two things and not accept any but one at the same time is contradiction and is false. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I hope I'm clear, inshallah. I hope I'm clear. Alhamdulillah. So now we enter into this, the last part before we enter into the chapter of Nubuwwat. As you can see, we are finishing this a big chapter on Uluhiyyat and the Barahin and the rational proofs for the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what is impossible for Allah and what is jaiz for Allah. Basically, we are in the third part, which jaiz for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we speak about the actions of Allah, which is jaiz and not wajib or mustahil. If some are necessary, all are necessary. If some are necessary, all are necessary. Yani if you say some contingencies are necessary, what is it? What does it entail? It entails that all contingencies are necessary. Why? Because they are of the same category. Contingencies are of the same category. So when we say something that is contingent, it accepts existence and non-existence. So when you say something only accepts any existence, but yet it is contingent, meaning it is not any contingent. It is not any contingent. Because if it is necessary, it only accepts existence and it does not accept non-existence. So even though you say part of it and it is necessary, then all it becomes necessary. Likewise, when you say some of it are impossible, you say some contingencies are impossible, then all contingencies will become impossible. And because they share the same ruling. They share the same ruling. Something that is contingent must be contingent. It cannot be necessary and it cannot be mustahil. It cannot be impossible. Something that is necessary cannot become possible. Something that is necessary cannot become possible. Something that is necessary cannot become impossible. Something that is impossible cannot become necessary. And something that is impossible cannot become possible. So these three, there can be no mixture. There can be no mixture. There is no distinction between one contingent possibility and another. Meaning all contingencies carry the same ruling. They accept existence and non-existence. So they do not differ in this. Whatever is affirmed for something is also affirmed for that which is like. This is the thing here. Please underline this. This is the ruling. And when you say that contingencies, then it applies for all. If you say contingencies are necessary, then all part of contingencies are necessary, then all of contingencies becomes necessary. Why? Because this is the thing. Whatever is affirmed for something is also affirmed for that which is like. So what is a contingent being carries the same ruling as other contingent beings. The upshot of this rational proof is that if the transformation of a contingent possibility into something necessary or impossible is proven false, the necessity or impossible of something is also proven false. So now he said, if there is a contingent possibility or contingent being, so this contingent being cannot be necessary. Why? Because there is a contradiction. A contingent being only accepts existence and non-existence. So how can something accept existence and non-existence? At the same time, it accepts only existence. This is a contradiction. So what is a possible being? Contingent possibility. It cannot become necessary and it cannot become impossible. And this is basically what I mentioned earlier. So it is proven false because why? There is a contradiction. There is a contradiction. Likewise, when we say something that is a contingent being, it cannot be impossible because impossible cannot accept existence, whereas contingent being can accept any existence and also can accept non-existence. What is necessary cannot become impossible because necessary can only accept existence, whereas impossible can only accept non-existence. So these are two opposites and they cannot be they cannot any be the same. If that is proven false, then it follows that the contingent possibilities are permissible. So at the end of the day, this is any rational proof, is that contingent any possibilities any are from the jaizat and not any from the wajib and from the mustahil. Yani we say the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of bringing something into effect, bringing something into existence any or non-existence, this bringing of something into existence and non-existence, which we say as the actions, the fi'l of Allah, this must be from the jaiz and cannot be from the wajib or the mustahil. Because if it is a wajib, then contingencies and it becomes wajib, and there is a contradiction. If it is impossible, then contingencies and it cannot be in existence. So since any contingencies any are yani jaiz, the action any must also be jaiz. So nothing any is forced any upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this regard. Khilafan lil Mu'tazila, the Mu'tazila yani mentioned that it is necessary any for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring something that is of benefit, to bring any something any that is of benefit. So this is any the slippage any of the slippage any of the Mu'tazila. The Ahlus Sunnah yani says that there is nothing that is wajib any upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is nothing any that can be made necessary upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani Allah does things based any on his will. So nothing any can overcome Allah, or nothing any can force any Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do a particular action. So the actions any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is from the possibilities and not any from the necessaries or the impossibilities. I hope it is clear, inshallah. It is not rationally or legally necessary for Allah to do or leave anything. Now this is what I mentioned. There's nothing any can force Allah. And the proof any from the Quran and the Sunnah, the author any mentioned, وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ. This mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas, verse 868, which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he creates everything based on his will, and he wills so. Nothing is enforced for him, and he chooses and nothing is forcing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he wants to do something, everything based on his will. He can bring something into existence or not bring something into existence. Everything happens by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, this is the beauty of the aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah. You will find, for example, the sect of Jabriya, they believe the Mu'tazila, for example, they say that there are certain things that are necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do. For example, there are certain things that are necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to do. So they fall into all these slippages. So the aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah, we believe that nothing forces Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does everything by his will. So by this, alhamdulillah, and then we have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whatever Allah will shall be, and whatever he does not will shall not. So this is it carries the general meaning, where we say that everything happens by the will of Allah, and nothing can enforce Allah to do or not to do. This basically what it means. That's what we mentioned. So now, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, we have come into the chapter of Nubuwwat. Inshallah, I've just taken some time before we stop to go into this chapter, inshallah. The author mentioned the messengers. This particular chapter, we will speak about the third topic in Aqidah, that is the topic of Nubuwwat. So he said, Ar-Rusulu alayhimus salatu wassalam. So the messengers here is a translation of Rusul. And Rusul is a plural of Rasul, and there is a difference between Rasul and Nabi. This is the first thing that he will speak about. So he said a messenger, Rasul. So maybe just write this down. Rasul, a messenger, Rasul is a male, adult, human who is free and intelligent. This is the definition, part of the definition. So number one, is a male. So there is no messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a female. In the Quran, for example, Allah speaks about Maryam alayhi salam, Allah speaks about Maryam, and he speaks about the wife of Fir'aun, for example. They are not any prophets or messengers, despite when you read about Maryam alayhi salam, Allah bless her with miracles, correct or not? Allah bless her with miracles. But she is not a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because a condition of a messenger that he must be a male. And this is point number one. And an adult, and not a young child. Human being, not any from the angels or jinn, who is free here meaning not a slave. And intelligent, not someone who is for example slow, or having any difficulty in understanding. This is impossible. To whom Allah has revealed a sacred law. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to him laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be it in a book form or not. Some messengers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to them books. Some messengers Allah did not reveal to them books, but Allah revealed to them certain laws, and Allah make it obligatory upon them to convey to the people. So this is a Rasul, different from Nabi, which inshallah after this we will speak about. So the definition of a Rasul, that he must be a male, he must be a male adult, a person who has reached adulthood, and a human being, meaning not from the other creations of jinn or angels, not a slave, and a person who possesses a high level of intelligence. To whom Allah has revealed a sacred law, the laws of Allah revealed to him, be it in a book form or otherwise. So for example, there are messengers that Allah revealed to them books. For example, we have Nabi Daud alayhi salam, Allah revealed to him the Zabur, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, Injil, Nabi Musa alayhi salam, likewise Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, Suhufu Ibrahim or Musa, is what Allah mentioned in the Quran. So they came to their people with those books of revelation, like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this is not a condition, not every prophet messengers sent by Allah with a kitab. There are messengers that Allah did not send them with kitab, but Allah revealed to them certain laws, and Allah make it obligatory upon them to convey to the servants. This is what he mentioned. If you look here, and who was ordered by him to convey it to the servants. So this is the definition. The whole sentence, from the beginning until here, is the definition of a Rasul. So please take note. So now he explained about this definition. He said this definition excludes an angel or jinn, meaning there is no messenger who is an angel or jinn. Allah has not sent either of two as messengers. All messengers are human beings. All messengers are human beings. And Allah never sent, for example, to a particular community jinn, what you call it as a Rasul, to human beings, and it does not happen. This also excludes a slave, because a messenger can only be a free person. Now, no messengers are slaves. This also excludes a female, a hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite is a person who has two sexual organs. In Arabic, we call it khuntha. A young child who has not reached puberty, as well as a simpleton. Meaning a person who does not possess intelligence. A person who is in our words we say low IQ, or a person who is dumb. It is impossible that prophets, what you call it, are sent in such a situation. And an intelligent person, or a claimant to prophecy, a person who claims to be a prophet, mutanabbi, this is impossible. Prophets cannot be someone who only claims lying to people, but they come with all these attributes and revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This definition also excludes a prophet, Nabi, because Al-Imam Sanusi said and ordered him to convey it. So what is the difference between a Rasul and Nabi? The difference is that a Nabi is it has all the characteristics of the Rasul. It's just that he is not made to convey. He is not commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to convey. So he received any revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is a male, but he is not ordered any to convey. A prophet therefore is an adult human being who is free and intelligent, to whom Allah has revealed a sacred law, even though he did not order him to convey it to the creation. So this is the difference between Rasul and Nabi. This is the first thing that the author speaks about in this particular chapter. So he mentioned a messenger is more specific than a prophet. Every messenger is a prophet, but not every prophet is a messenger. Clear, inshallah? We say that every messenger is a prophet, because all the characteristics that has in a Nabi has in a Rasul. But the Rasul is higher than the prophet. Is that Allah commanded the Rasul to convey, whereas for the prophets, for the Nabi, Allah did not commanded that to do the conveyance. So that is the difference. So that is why every Rasul is a Nabi, but not every Nabi is a Rasul. Some prophets are messengers and some are not. For they, the prophets, were not ordered to convey their message. So this is the difference. Notice, messengers do not convey everything they know. There are other matters that the messengers know, but they do not convey. However, they do convey everything and that they are commanded. This because there are three categories of things: that which they are ordered to convey, and which they are ordered to conceal, and which they are ordered to given a choice. And basically, for messengers, there are certain things that Allah commanded them to convey. There are certain things that Allah does not want them to convey. So basically, what the author is saying, that the messengers and prophets, from the messengers and the Rasul, they only convey what Allah wanted them to convey, and they do not convey what Allah did not want them to convey. So there are certain knowledge that they possess, but they do not convey to the people. There are hadiths pertaining to this, which is going to be mentioned. But this is the thing, that there are certain things that Allah commanded them to convey. Now it is they will convey those message. There are certain things that Allah does not want them to convey, and there are certain things, point number 3, that Allah give them a choice to convey or not to convey. So it is necessary part of the characteristics of messengers is that they convey what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them to convey, and it is impossible that they do not convey what Allah commanded them to convey. Then inshallah in our next lesson we will speak about the necessary attributes of the messengers and prophets. So inshallah I will stop here, and inshallah we continue next week, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.